Hello, hello, good friends. Welcome. It's Pink Pixels. I'm so excited to be here today. And by today, I will admit we're actually recording this on Thursday, a few days in advance. Let's just say we were so excited we couldn't wait till Monday. So we're doing our conversation now. So you are actually watching a recording, but I promise it will just be as authentic, as fulfilling as we have every conversation on Monday. So if you're in chat, hello. It's wonderful to see you all. I'll be watching this later in the recording. While we are not here, we have some wonderful moderators here to help foster communication. And in this, it's still important that we do engage. As you connect and share your stories, that's the beauty of digital spaces where we can connect and not necessarily always real time. We have this asynchronous world in which we can connect and read and share, and it becomes so much better for it. So thank you all for tuning in. We're going to have an amazing discussion tonight. And as always, whatever day we have it, it's our chance to refill our cup. Even if you watch this later on as a recording or you come back to it, it's that choice that we are being purposeful. We're being thoughtful as to what stories that we bring into our life. Who do we want to inspire us, to encourage us? Every year I like to do a little audit. It's an audit of my social media. It's an audit of the books. It's an audit of the speakers, all of those that I take in. And it's a good moment to reflect of who am I allowing to influence my life? Are there individuals that show me a difference in perspective, that let me see the world from a different lens, that bring in a way to help encourage and make my space and my community better, more loving, more supportive? That's the goal. And I hope that you do the same. And here in Pink Pixels, we work towards that. We bring in individuals from a variety of different backgrounds and experiences. And I appreciate that you come each week as a wonderful community to help broaden your scope, to deepen your well. And tonight is no exception. We have an amazing individual joining us today. So please, let's go ahead and turn it straight over. Help me welcome our wonderful guest this evening, Tess Wainright. Tess, come say hello to us.
Hi, everyone. Happy Pride. My name is Tess. I'm a video game writer and sometimes a programmer. I also have my cat here with me today. So, you know, feeling very feels almost very Bond villain-like, sitting here in my chair, petting my cat on recording. But yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
Now, I want to talk to you a little bit more, Tess, about, of course, your role in this space. I want to start from the very beginning because everybody seems to have a very unique journey of how they get there and what they do. So for you, how did you find yourself where you are now? What was your pathway that you took?
So when I was growing up, I really liked reading and writing. And so for a long time, I wanted to be an author. But I kind of knew, you talk about being an author and everyone's like, well, go get a day job and then, write on the side. And so I was like, okay. I was looking around at other jobs to go into. I almost did computers. I almost did like wildlife biology at one point.
We love a biology major.
Nice, nice. But I ended up talking with a person who was like, yeah, I work as a video game writer. And the best thing about being a video game writer is that you get hired by a company. So you get to be a writer, but you also, get a full-time job. And then he sold me his book on how to become a video game writer. So yeah, but yeah, it was like the best thing ever. I was like, this is what I want to do.
Right.
So I went and I majored in game writing.
Mm-hmm.
So it turned out his pitch wasn't entirely accurate. But I'm really, really happy that I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
I really fell in love with writing for video games, and especially a lot of the interactive fiction stuff and the visual novels and whatnot, where you really get a chance to, read a very in-depth story, but, you also have an element of, and you look at the old Infocom games, you've got a lot of freedom there. And it's all text. So that was all very fascinating to me. So I think all in all, even if I could make a living with it, I wouldn't, necessarily go back to prose. But yeah, so that's how I ended up majoring in writing. I got some freelance work out of school doing teaching, some doing, social media stuff. And then my first writing contract actually came through the person who I had done social media for. She was like, hey, we need somebody to like put out a fire on the story side of this other game. Like, can you come in and just do a bunch of writing? And that was how I got in. And then once you already have something under your belt, each additional credit that you have makes things easier from there. So, yeah, I haven't gotten to the point where everything is paid for by game design exclusively yet. I've started picking up some editing, work. So I'll edit people's writing at times. And right now I'm actually doing another teaching thing. But yeah, I mean, I've gotten the chance to work on a handful of fun games, and there's a studio that some of my friends and I have started up as well that right now absorbs most of the money that I'm making rather than actually making any money. But yeah, no, I'm really excited about it, and I really do hope that one day it eventually does become my job, because it's already a full-time job. It'd be nice to not also need to have other jobs.
That's fair.
Yeah.
You're like, it has the hours commitment. That's not the problem. You're like, I've got coworkers,
absolutely.
but it's not the money that I need quite yet.
Yeah.
But I appreciate your honesty in that, right? Like, because at the beginning, like, you can get a job and you can do this full time, right? That's important to know, because as much as we love this industry, it is certainly glamorized to a certain degree of what you can do, how easy is it to get into, what does this work really look like? And so having those honest conversations of like, yes, here's what I love doing, here's what I'm doing. It doesn't quite pay yet to the degree that you need, right? But that way people can make choices and understand what's right for them and how they pace themselves, because that can be risky, of knowing like how little can I live on?
Yeah. I got really lucky in that I've been living with my parents for quite a while. So it works out because, they've, developed health issues that means they need someone around to take care of them. I don't have a ton of money coming in. So it's like, oh, well, what if I just, lived there and took care of you and then saved money that way as well? It helps that I've mostly worked remotely, because then it's kind of like, why are you going and spending all sorts of money to just live in an apartment somewhere when, the family could just stay together? So that has been a very big part of how I've been able to dedicate so much time to something that doesn't actually pay right now. And then dedicate a lot of the funds from, the paid work that I do actually do throughout the day to, paying the people that I work with so that this can keep moving forward. So, there's definitely a lot of privileges that, this company would not exist without. If I did have to live on my own, if I like didn't get along with my mom and dad, I would absolutely. I don't know how I would pay for rent. I'd probably just have to have gotten an office job at some point. There'd be times where I would be able to pay the rent with my freelancing work. I don't want to make it seem like super dire either. There was a time when I had like a big, like, there were some years where I had like really big gigs that paid enough where I was like, okay, I could have lived independently like those years. It's just that it hasn't been every year. Some years yes, some years no. So
Yeah.
um,
And that's kind of also the life of being a freelancer, right? Like, yeah,
yeah,
you can often choose the jobs that you want and you can move around and have that flexibility and but it's also not the promise of after this contract's done, are you going to get another one or the longevity of each thing.
yeah. The game I'm working on right now sort of has a little bit of that in there. You have like health and stamina and stuff, and I very much was sort of, it sounds like an absolutely terrible thing that people wouldn't want to experience, but I was very much like, I want this to sort of feel like, I have this much to work with, this much stamina to work with. I don't exactly know when more is going to come in. And then when it does come in, you're like, oh, yes. It's like this catharsis. Um, but yeah, with the story that's being told, this area that they're going out and exploring is meant to be very harsh and intimidating. So that was part of how I wanted to kind of use the mechanics to sort of convey how draining that place can be on the people who are out there. Is just, you're like, I am dying right now, and it comes in short bursts, but yeah, I know that makes it sound terrible. Nobody's going to want to play it now. And then I'm like, yeah,
No, no.
that feeling of like not having enough money. That's
it.
like, yeah, that's the game. No, that's not the whole game. I promise.
It's a relatable amount of stress. Actually, I really kind of like that to a certain degree. I wish I could pull video game aspects into real life sometimes, like having an actual bar for like my health or not like my stamina. Like I feel like I would treat myself better if I could see that visual. Like just it appears above me, kind of like the Sims diamond that hangs out above. I just need my little
Yeah.
health bar, my stamina, my emotional capacity.
Yeah. No, definitely. Like, I'm really tired right now. If I sit down and get to work, is that going to kind of, lift off, or am I just going to be more tired after that?
Exactly. But I
Type of
love
thing.
like
Absolutely.
you're working on great and amazing games. You have your own group that you guys are working on together. What is that like to start to lead and develop your own team instead of just working on others' projects, but to have your own?
Um, that was another thing I kind of came into a little naively.
Fair.
A bit of a running theme, a series of naive decisions that somehow actually worked out.
That's an interesting title for a book.
Yeah, yeah, but so when I started out, I actually had this idea that like I was going to be the best boss ever because I had been, down there working the jobs that, they are working right now. And I knew, you know, how, people wanted to be treated there. And so I thought like, oh, well, I'll do, a much better job than, basically I can do it better than, the people who I had
Yeah.
seen do it before. Um, it turned out to be a bit of a train wreck at first, as far as like, I didn't know what to plan for. I didn't know what to expect. None of the schedules I made had any sort of accuracy, and the initial draft of the game was just way too ambitious.
Fair.
Um,
A little
and
humble
those
pie was
things,
eaten that day. Yeah.
yeah. So those things got corrected over time.
Yeah.
We have what I think is a pretty solid project management setup right now. On Jira, seems to be one of those things. People either love Jira or they have like massive bad feelings about some previous Jira project. They're like, oh no, don't don't bring that up again.
They've been scarred for life. Never again.
Yeah.
That's fair.
But yeah, we have that set up. So I think with like the new people who have come in, I feel like I've been doing a much better job of just being consistent with like saying this is how things are going to happen, that actually like being how things are going to happen, keeping, um, you know, people, well informed in ways where like if they can't come to a meeting, there's like a meeting summary afterwards, having sort of monthly summaries of like, what's been done, just, screenshots posted, on work days to, so people see like, just different mechanics happening. So each day is like, there's a little taste of like, this is what, this new thing looks like. Things like that.
I hear the
Yeah,
sighs.
yeah.
But I think this
No,
is
the
right.
original people who have been there since the beginning can
Yeah.
tell you about the chaos days.
That's like the
Early
title
on.
of it, the chaos era.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I feel like that was something I didn't do a good job of, but overall, like I had some good resources to help me out and to learn from. And I think probably the biggest lesson that I've taken away is if you put yourself in the shoes of the person who you are working with and really try to do things that help them as well as help you, um, people will people will work through most things with you. One of the mistakes I made was I always like having a really loose leash to just kind of go off and do things when I'm working as a freelancer.
Yeah.
And I started off doing that with some of the artists that I hired. I was like, here's a list of assets, just, let me know if you have any questions. And there was one time we had a deadline coming up, and I was like, no, things are pretty tight. So if it's okay with you, are you okay if I make like a schedule of like, this is when we need this sketch, this is when we need like, et cetera, et cetera. And they were like, oh, this is the best thing you've ever made. They're like, I'm glad that we finally got something like this from you. And I was really surprised that,
Thank you.
yeah, I was really surprised by kind of the rigidity that people wanted. It made them happy, but they were like, I really didn't know what you wanted even
Yeah.
until this showed up. And
Mm.
so now I have that. But it's because, when you reach out to people and you're like, well, I want to give you a lot of freedom because I know that's how I would be in your situation. And then people say, actually, I like more rigidity. And then you give them that, schedule, that process, like here's a plan, here's a game plan, just follow these steps and everything, will be good.
It makes a world of difference, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Yes.
no, people will absolutely work with you through all of those things. Um, Another one that, and when I've gone to like business stuff, it kind of irritates me how people think that I am like doing something wrong by doing this. But one thing that I notice with a lot of people who are new, who don't, especially like right out of college, they drastically undercharge for things. And a lot of times it's because they've taken the advice of like, um, what like imagine how many hours this would take you and then think of your hourly rate and then charge that. So there will be background artists who will say like, oh, well, I can probably get that done in like an hour. It takes them the entire day. So now they've charged like $25 for a background, and completely reduced their hourly rate by it. So
Ooh.
when someone comes and they're like, "Yeah, I'll do a background for like, $25," I'm like,
Mm.
it's
No, you won't.
yeah, like
I mean, you
you
might,
you
but
should
you
be
shouldn't.
charging, yeah, like 300, 400, something like that. That's not unusual for a background. And the people
Hmm.
who, do the really advanced stuff for like the AAA,
Yeah.
they charge a lot more than that.
Well,
Um,
especially if it includes any revisions. Like that's
yeah, right, right. So it's like, you're like, yeah, no, we need to bump that up a lot.
Mhm.
But it's being proactive. It's sitting there and saying to the person, you are going to be unhappy in this job very quickly
Mhm.
if I sign this contract.
Yes.
Um, and people, I don't know, I feel like people who would have signed that contract are the people who complain about nobody wanting to work anymore. um,
Yeah.
so
Who wants to do 4 hours of work for $25, right? Like,
yeah, yeah,
mm,
yeah.
you know,
So
you're doing so
you
much
know,
work that can barely now cover a McDonald's meal.
yeah, right. So
I,
yeah, I mean, even with writing, it's like,
mhm.
okay, well, do you have research on like, the time period and the culture that's
Mhm.
being written about to get in there? Are they going to want an outline first before you actually write the dialogue? And then, like you said, you have to go through and, edit it and do revisions of it. So it's like, sure, you might be able to, slap something out in 15 minutes. That doesn't mean that that's how the process is going to go.
Mhm. I love this. You're really highlighting, I think, one of the biggest steps that often are missing when people think like I want to go into this space. They think of the skills like I want to be a writer and yes, they can write or I want to be a designer and yes, they can design, but they forget about the business side, which
Hmm.
is it's the thing that has to house all of the work that you do. Like when you sign a
Hmm.
contract, that's the business side. Are you signing a contract that is negotiable? Have you outlined the steps that it's going to take? Do you know the time frame that it's going to take? Do you see how that works with all the other things that are on your plate? Yes, you could complete it in a week if it's the only thing on your plate for that week. If you have 3 other freelance jobs that you're also cycling, maybe you should extend the deadline to 2 weeks or right? Like it's understanding, yes, I can do it, but how do I operate? And
Right.
I loved the vulnerability of even like you talking with good grace, appropriate grace of that chaotic era that even you went through, like because we all do, but then how do we move out? And I love how you talk about like here's where we're moving. We're creating lists and deadlines to add a degree of structure, and it's that
Yeah.
weird balance of finding out uniquely for those who you bring to your table and on your team of that degree of how much rigidity and how much flexibility. Where does that exist
Right.
and where do we align it? Because yeah, there is that naivety that we bring of like, we can do this better. And then we get into it. And don't get me wrong, we should. There are a lot of things that we look
Yeah.
at, like the big studios now, like, yeah, we should do this better.
Hmm.
But how is always going to be the challenge.
Yeah. I think we have a tendency to look back at our like most productive best moments and be like, oh,
Yes.
well, if everything was like that, I could get this much done in a week.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason I'm not is because I have, these moments where, you know,
You're human.
yeah, where I'm, where you're human. And yeah, I really like that way of saying it. We don't factor in the human when we make those estimates. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and uh, and sometimes it's just like uh, I'm trying to think of like, I don't know. I don't wanna stall too much on just rambling. I told you I was going to apologize for a ramble at some point
I love a
on this
ramble.
stream, and yeah, I
But you're
so yeah,
right.
there
Like,
there it is.
I get what you're saying. Like, there's that balance of yes, acknowledging when we're human, but it's also making sure that we give ourselves like built-in grace periods.
Yeah.
That's so important, especially when we're working with other people. We can't always add in our own timelines other people's delays or needs or additional
Yeah.
wants that they have. We can try to. And every time, I feel like every few months I have to revisit my own contracts of things because I find another thing I have to add because I've had a client that violates it. Like,
Mm.
oh, maybe I should put that in my contract. Like, we live and we learn sort of space. But it's also then making sure that when those unexpected happens, that you're giving yourself that buffer. And it can really be anything, whether it is a client or, I mean, let's be honest, maybe we have depressive episodes and we're like, today is not my
Yeah.
productive day.
Yeah. Yeah. No, um, sort of on that earlier topic about how I'm doing a lot of freelancing, and the freelancing is what's bringing in the money that I'm, paying the people at the
Yeah.
startup with. Right now, that's just added up to be a lot.
Yeah.
We've had some illness in the family recently as well, so
Sorry.
um, I know uh, yesterday I was having a lot of just really bad burnout symptoms
Mhm.
throughout the day. Um, so it can sneak up on you. Whoever you are, my cat feels like she's going to join at
Please.
some point. Um, but oh, there she
There.
is. Hello.
She has a lot to say. It's okay.
Yeah, she's. I'm sorry, this is turning into like the most chaotic interview.
I love
Probably.
chaos. No, we thrive. Listen, when you're in the game industry, you learn to understand chaos as part of the story, right? Like, it doesn't phase us anymore.
Yes. All right. Cool.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I think I think it's important to try to
Mhm.
two kind of conflicting ideas are that I try to push myself in those moments because I feel like sometimes you can accomplish more than you give yourself credit for. But at the same time, I think it's important to recognize when something really is wrong that needs to be fixed, and then just do the productive work that's going to get you back into the right mind space. If the news makes you angry, that's not what you do in your brain. um,
Fair.
you know, you
Dang. I'm glad you bring up that contradiction, or like that balance. They're two opposing sides
yeah,
because we often hear them like as positive things, but they can also be negative things. Like they're dual. Like, yes, you are stronger than you believe, and sometimes we say that when we push ourselves beyond our point of exhaustion. But I can be stronger. I can do one more thing,
yeah,
instead of being that encouragement of like, you know, knowing and recognizing your capability of not diminishing your skill and your projects and your output. On that flip side of like, hey, take care of yourself. It's like, right. It's that balance, and learning what that is, well, it's a journey in and of itself of being able to understand ourselves.
yeah.
Ugh.
I think the people who accomplish those really incredible things, I mean, having a lot of help also helps. I mean, me living with my parents, as I said before,
Yeah.
is this wouldn't be happening if I didn't have that. So,
Hmm.
certainly that's something to be said. For a lot of successful people, there's
Yeah.
you know, being born rich, or stuff like that helps.
Fair.
But the people who just like um outside of talks about privilege and whatnot,
Hmm.
I think the people who really accomplish really cool things, a lot of it is that they know how to efficiently take care of themselves. They know what their body needs. They know how to eat food that they like, that is healthy for them, that keeps them in good health and a good mood.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, taking some time to exercise, and even better than that, exercise that you like, because then, you can come back from it, like really happy and refreshed, but you've also, taken care of your body as well. So, yeah, this is my message
I
of
love
the
it.
of the day is eat good food, stay hydrated, get some sleep, make, make good games.
Yes. But
Yes.
I mean, we laugh at it, but I mean, what you're saying is so fundamental, and we forget, like, it's hard to
Yeah.
be a good creative. It's hard to be
Yeah.
our best versions of ourselves if, even when we are by the book doing the right things, if they are things that we hate, right? Like,
Yeah.
how do we make eating a healthy, positive experience for us? How do we make exercise a healthy, positive experience for us? Even sleeping, right? I have two dogs that do not always share well, and it creates for sometimes a lot of sleep attempts that are very unproductive because somebody
Mm.
keeps moving all the time or kicking me as I look at my own dog, right? Like, so even though I love them and we try, it's not something that works. How do we make it something that's good? Putting ourselves through situations that are reoccurring, that we don't like, it will continue to wear down at us. And you're right, because these are fundamentals. We eat every day. And if we make it a routine that it is something that we hate ourselves for, either we overindulge and it's not what we want to eat, or it's only unhealthy food and we always feel worse afterwards, right?
Yeah.
We're not setting ourselves up for success.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, one thing that I always had a really big problem with was skipping breakfast.
Mm.
Not necessarily because I, was like, oh, I don't have time for this, but it's also just like I was kind of too lazy for it.
That's me. Yep.
Yeah. And but yeah, when I started actually like keeping track of like, all this different stuff, it's amazing how much just eating food in the morning, you don't immediately feel it,
Hmm.
but like, your work life will be better, your uh, personal life will be better.
Okay.
Your social life is, it's, so it definitely pays off to take that little bit of time to take care of yourself. Um,
All right, Tess, help me out then. I
okay.
want to start eating breakfast more often. What's your go-to breakfast?
Um, Eggs on 3 eggs scrambled on a piece of toast with mozzarella cheese melted over it.
Ooh.
That's like the go-to, usually the go-to breakfast for me. Um,
Okay, I like that. That's doable. And also, they don't go bad in the fridge as quickly as vegetables. So I like this.
yeah. Another thing that I've found, I feel like somebody's microwave is gonna blow up because of this, but if you whip the eggs enough, you can just like put them in a paper bowl and put them in the microwave for a few minutes on like a low power setting.
Yeah.
But like then you don't have any dishes to wash basically. You have the bowl to put in, to wash, but you don't have to get like a skillet dirty or whatever just because you're making eggs. That's another
Okay.
time saver that I've used.
Okay, I love that because yeah, sometimes I eat like only certain things because I don't want to make another dish dirty, and washing
Yeah,
pots and pans, and they're so big. Like and there's no like I don't have like the single serving size like skillet like where it's one egg at a time sort of thing.
yeah,
They're all
yeah,
big. They take forever to clean, or you got to scrub them a little extra harder, and it's just like, well, dang it, it's not worth the effort because
yeah.
it's not only
Just
taking the time of making it, it's now taking the time to clean it up.
yeah, just make sure they're really, really whipped up and
Okay.
they yeah. Microwave's been so far. Microwave's been fine for me. I think they taste a little bit better if as with most
Okay.
things, the microwave isn't, if you want to, go 5-star restaurant quality, the microwave isn't the best place to do it in. But honestly, it tastes perfectly fine for me, especially when you're going to put, like things like, different cheeses on it and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then the warm egg melts the cheese, so you just like put the cheese on it, and it takes care of that for you.
Okay, that's perfect. And I like it, but like it because when we're thinking about things like sometimes we hear the steps of like, yeah, we have to take care of ourselves, but knowing what that actually looks like and putting it into action always is the hardest step, right?
Yeah, yeah, no, no, definitely. Yeah, I I don't want to like completely beat a dead
Do
horse
it.
on that though. So yeah, I feel like I could keep coming up with examples of just like
I appreciate it.
different things.
Well,
Um,
and that's
yeah.
part of like as we try to understand what do it because as we go through it and it shows your own reflection work of like how do I make things work for me? Because so many
Mhm.
times in many of our lives wherever we are, we get stuck or we hit those roadblocks. And because there's so many, it can be hard to figure out like where do I begin? What do these
Mhm.
solutions need to look like? And we'd like to look at bigger solutions. Like, well, I'll just change jobs or I'll pick up this whole brand new diet or I'll move states, all right, or something massive like that. And while those
Mhm.
certainly do change things up, it is very impressive and surprising how much smaller actions like choosing to eat breakfast every day can
Mhm.
impact what you are capable of doing.
Yeah, and as far as like, being on a team,
Mm-hmm.
if people ask you about this stuff, you have no obligation to share anything outside of work with anybody. So if, this is your personal life and you want to keep it personal, that is absolutely your decision. But I feel like when you are in, it works best on like the small team situations that I've usually been in. But when you are in a team where everyone does sort of feel comfortable having that vulnerability with each other, and people don't feel like they're going to be punished or judged harshly or passed up on an opportunity later on because they've been open about the fact that they've had struggles. um, it is amazing how much a team like that can come together and really um, do something great and do some great things for people when it's not just like how can we make this really cool game, but it's also like how can we make each other happy, like how can we all make the people we work with. I think when you how can we all make the people we work with their days um, a little bit better. um, and I think when you do that for people
Mm-hmm.
in a group environment like that, you start noticing people doing that
Yeah.
for each other
Yeah.
um, as well. And
I like that.
yeah.
Well, let's dive into that,
Mhm.
Tess, a little, because
Okay.
I think it's so important, right? When we look at workplace environment, but we hear many times, like again and again, people stay because they have good managers, they leave because they have bad managers, right? It's not because the company, like people join companies all the time, but they stay or go because of the people that they're around, who they're working with. Does it feel like it's a place that they're supported, that they're seen, and that they're a valued contributor in this space? I want to know from you, both as leading your startup, which again,
Mhm.
wild, kudos, love it, and
Oh,
also
thank
doing
you.
freelance where you've seen, of course, other teams. What are some green flags and red flags of saying like this is what makes a good team. This is what makes a good, healthy work environment where people thrive.
Um, I feel like um, I'm trying to think through it. One thing is trust.
Mm,
I know
yeah.
uh, I don't want to throw any individual like I don't want to hang dirty laundry, but I know there was one person who I was friends with who had a phone,
Hmm.
and they were supposed to be if the phone rang, they answered the phone, they were on call basically.
Yeah.
And the boss would call their phone just to be like, oh, I just wanted to make sure that you would pick up. That is a complete lack of just um it's you can definitely end up with anxiety about things, but
Yes.
if you have that sort of anxiety, I think you need to talk that out. And if you are somebody who has people on call, I guess first ask yourself, why are you nervous about that?
Yeah.
Because it's like, do these people have a history of not, of when an emergency pops up, of not answering?
Hmm.
Because if they don't, then you can reassure yourself with the good track record that exists.
Hmm.
If they do, then you guys can just sit down and have that's when you have conversations with people about I just wanted to let you know there are sometimes things where people's lives will be really negatively affected if we don't put something out right away.
Hmm.
And I wish I could make that happen during normal 9 to 5 hours, but unfortunately I can't. So
Hmm.
during these times that we're signed up for, you have to be you know willing to you know to yeah we really need you during that time. And if something happens where they're like,
Hmm.
I've just been really um sick recently and I just don't know when a flare up's going to come, then you lighten things a bit. That's
Hmm.
somebody who may be having a flare up at a given time is not the emergency contact
Yeah.
when a fire happens. So that's just that's an example where it's like they should be trusting you. They should be
Hmm.
kind to you. I feel like overall, and I'm having a hard time kind of coming up with examples that you'd get just from an interview, but I feel like you should get a feeling that the people you work with and work for want what's best for you. They want
Hmm.
success for you.
I
So it's a
love that.
definitely a fine line. Yeah, it's definitely a fine line that you walk. On the one hand, you want to make sure people are accomplishing their career goals, but then at the same time, if you ask somebody like, "Hey, what are your career goals?" That's a very easy way to just create an awkward conversation. So, you know, I'm not necessarily saying that oh, they show up and ask all sorts of invasive questions about you as a person,
Hmm.
but the stuff that they know, um,
Hmm.
even you were talking about the little things. If they know that I mean, one of the really good bosses that I had knew that our artist really liked turtles, so one of the characters in the game was a turtle,
Oh.
um, because they were like, "Yeah, just go draw your turtle. Like I know you like to do. That's the best thing that you can do for people." And
Yes.
if people are doing that for you, those are the green flags. And then the red flags are if they're not,
Hmm.
if you're for example offering $25 for a whole visual novel background, and they say, yeah, sure, and then when you say, I don't think this is going to work out, if they pressure you oh, well, you told me that
Hmm.
you could make this for this much money, and we already made a plan where we have 20 different backgrounds because we thought they were only going to cost uh $25. um
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I have had people sometimes say to me when I give them an estimate, they're like, "Well, this is going to be like this big. That means that the whole game would cost like, you know, such and such like ridiculous amount of money."
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yeah, it's a very ambitious game. I'm happy to work on it, but it's yeah, and we all get that. I know I'm rambling again,
No, I
so
love it. I want to make sure, like, because I think you're mentioning so many good things, and especially examples that a lot of individuals can experience, right? That they see.
Mhm.
It's that balance of finding a team, especially team leads, whether it's manager, supervisor, CEO, whatever their title happens to be, that they are invested in caring about you to help
Mhm.
support you so you can be a good employee, right? That works when you have good leaders supporting good employees. That's when you have really great thriving spaces, and it works on that basis of like I trust that you are good, right? And
Yeah,
clearly identifying what those expectations are. What are those deadlines? If we have difficulty meeting them, can we have communication around those? Is this the right fit,
yeah,
or how do we support you, right? And like a good boss, if you say like, listen, I want to continue my career. It's not here. I have a job offer elsewhere. A good boss will perhaps be
oh,
sad, right, that you're leaving,
yeah.
but they'll be happy and want to support you as you move forward. Like, go, let
We
me write
had
your
an
recommendation. Yes.
Yeah, we had an animator
Mhm.
get scooped up by Disney, and I'm so
You're like,
happy
go.
for her. Like
Mm-hmm.
that is like the holy grail of being an animator.
Oh.
Like you can point to a Disney,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, and
Yeah.
just be like, I worked on that. So yeah, like
Mm-hmm.
absolutely good for her. I'm going to go off on another tangent, but
Yeah.
yeah, I remember when we were setting up contracts, one of the things the first lawyer that I talked to really wanted me to add in there was it might have been like kind of like a non-compete of some
Uh,
type, but they
yeah.
were like, this way, if a programmer gets approached by Google, you're not going to lose all your good programmers to Google. And I was like, but what if like if Google comes and wants to hire one of the programmers, they should go work for Google. Like what?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I feel like this initial lawyer I had talked to would be rather upset, like, see, you lost a really good animator because you just let Disney pluck them up as soon as she started showing talent.
Mm-hmm.
But like, why again? If you get what you get back what you put in. The
Yeah.
vibes that you put in are infectious. If you
Mm-hmm.
block somebody's good opportunity because you don't want to lose your talent, they are going to recognize that moment where you put yourself over them. And when difficult moments arise, they're going to put themselves over you because they know that's what you do in that situation. Um, but the opposite is happen. This is going to sound really corny. You love other people and you treat people nice, and yeah, they do it back. You want to infect people with the good vibes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even when you offered like the turtle example, I think that's so
Yeah.
important. And it's also finding a way to show that you value, you see them, you appreciate them in a way that matters. Like there's sometimes like little side off things. I what was it? Teacher Appreciation Day was a while ago, and it hit the news that there was a school that gave generic gifts to all their teachers, like here's a stress ball with our school name on it and a cheap water bottle, and like instead of giving things that they really need,
Yeah.
included in it was, I think it was 15% off of their funeral services.
Oh no. Oh my
Right,
god.
like it is a form of appreciation, but it's one of those
Yeah.
things like the effort needs to actually be effective. It's not
Yeah.
just that you took the effort. Like you need to find ways that actually matter to them, and finding especially more unique ways. Like broad company gifts are sometimes nice, and like yeah, we could all have that like company team spirit, but it's even better
Yeah.
when it's personalized. Like hey, I know what you're going to like. I've heard of a panel that's coming up, and I think you'd be the right person for it. Like that's a great way to show recognition and to support them, or
Absolutely.
like, hey, I put you up for a nomination for this award, right? That's awesome to get, like, and
Yeah.
it feels like you feel seen. Those are managers, those are leaders in your space that are trying to lift you up, not just satiate your need for being, like where it seems like a
Yeah.
chore.
Right, right. Like, oh, you're not a tool to them. You're not a machine that,
Hmm.
a vending machine that you put money into and art
Yeah.
comes out of it. um yeah,
It's that humanness. Now,
yeah.
it's one thing to like be a human and try to be the best human we can as an employee. You are in the startup phase.
Mhm.
Startups are, even from my personal experience, exhausting,
Yeah, yeah.
demanding. Uh, Especially the first few years, you put a lot more in than you get to sometimes take out yet.
Yeah.
And as a leader, you bear the brunt of that.
Mhm.
What is it like, and how you navigate and make sure that you still take care of yourself? Like you even mentioned, like sometimes you do like the freelance work is what help pays to keep the
Yeah.
startup, right? Like out of all this, how do you still make sure that you get to be yourself, thriving and being human?
Yeah, it's definitely something where um I I mean, like you said, if we end up in a place where crunch is happening, it's because I've made poor decisions. So um, if if we're going to end up in a crunch period, I want to make sure that I'm the one who does that. But you know, not having the money to pay myself, not having a ton of funds to outsource things. It's slowly turned into one of my pet peeves. Whenever you ask for advice on that stuff, they say, um, delegate, delegate, delegate. And I'm like, with what money?
That's
with,
fair.
yeah, yeah, like with what money? Like, okay, it'd be great if I could hand all the programming off to other people. What do I pay them with? Like,
Yes.
am I going to take on more freelance work to get the money to pay more programmers? Well, suddenly now you're right back where you started.
Hmm.
So right now, unfortunately, it's kind of been a space where I've done a lot of crunching,
Yeah.
um, especially uh, like 2022 is a big crunch year. Now 2024 has kind of turned into a big crunch year. Um,
Hmm.
but I sort of keep telling myself that eventually I want to set this up to a point where I don't have to be doing that either. I
Yeah.
mean, getting to the point where I can pay myself is a huge step right there, because so much work would go off of my plate if I could just focus on this business 100%. And we got some grant money that really did help with that for a while. So that was a really nice period where I didn't have to freelance to get money to people.
Hmm.
Um, but but yeah, for now I think it's just sort of like, I think when you do try to make change, you do have to go through a bit of a fire before you get to the promised land at the end. And I think right now is just in a situation where um, the work situation isn't set up in a way that I'd want it to be long term. Um, but I think overall, like I said, it's those little things like taking care of my body and taking care of my brain. I think they just become more important during those times. I
Hmm.
think making sure you're doing those things really efficiently, not, necessarily spending time just, on social media for, 3 hours and you're like, what did I even do with my day? Doing things that are genuinely going to make you happy, that you're going to want to write about in a diary. Like, I had this amazing day because I went and I saw this, or I stayed home and I binged watched this,
Yeah.
new show that was just like amazing. Um, but I think the other thing that you can give yourself is seeing progress. The most motivating thing for me, for the rest of the team, for everybody, has been when you can see, art assets and audio and programming and design all click together into like, hey, we can actually play this level and it looks really good. That will like you will be like you could
Cloud
be just
nine.
yeah. No, that is straight up the meme of Mercy from Overwatch reaching out to the person, the game developer on their last legs sitting in the rubble, and then Mercy reaches out and there's this label over her head like that glitch you've been trying to fix now is now taken care of.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's that moment you're like, oh, thank goodness. Like you can breathe. It's a victory. It's saved.
Yeah.
All of that. Yes.
Victories will give you so much boost, and you can do that for other people too. Like,
Yeah.
I honestly, one of the things, and I'm just lucky that I have I work with artists who I have a team to work with that it is like this, but like when I'm doing writing, there are a lot of times where I will just have like a really vague idea of a character, but it feels flat, and it feels just like I'm not getting into this person's head. This person doesn't really exist yet. So I've talked with artists and been like, hey, can you just draw some stuff about like what this character might look like? And it's amazing, like once you have concept art, how you can be like, oh, I know exactly who this person is. There's like an evil queen in our game, where at first I was kind of like, I'm really not sure what she's like, and then as soon as I saw the concept art, I was like, oh, I don't want this to be a throwaway character anymore. I was like, this is a main character in our game now.
This is changing everything.
Yeah, and then B was like, oh, this is absolutely like like the full character just like sprung into my mind just from the concept art. And that had like a domino effect where once that queen character was fleshed out, like so much of the rest of the lore and story that I was struggling with kind of just got ignited from there. But like I was stuck, and seeing new art from artists like got me unstuck. And I'm sure there have been times where art people have been stuck, and seeing new writing or new music or a new feature that's now programmed into the game happen really gives them sort of a spark. Be like, oh, it's so cool, I can actually like play around with this now.
I love this because like and I think this is really what most people hope for when they start and they lead a team and they put something together, is they want one where it feels inspired, where people get excited about what they create, and that it's more than what you could do on your own, right? Like when you said like, I have this flat character, where do I go from here? When you have somebody else you can lean on, or even better, multiple people that you can lean on to help push further, that's really where magic gets to happen at the end of the day.
Yeah, if the people making the fun aren't having fun, it's not going to be fun.
It's built into it, right? Like when we say like a food item is like made with love, right? And you can taste the love, like that's an ingredient. Like that's also an ingredient in the games we play. Like you got to have fun making it, because then it'll be more fun playing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. You know what? Let's we're about an hour in. Let's go ahead and take a quick 5-minute break here, good friends. So we're going to be right back in a second. When we come back, let's talk more about this game that y'all are working on and some of your favorite projects that you've worked on in the past as well. Sound good, Tess?
Okay. All right, sounds good.
All right, good friends at Pink Pixels. We'll be back in 5 minutes. We'll see you all soon. We are back. Hello, good friends. Welcome back to Pink Pixels. We are in our second half here with the amazing Tess. We are talking about so much of what it goes into creating the business, the startup. And Tess, you have given us so many insights, like painting the picture for us of what you've been through, your journey, and it's so enlightening. I love this. Now, I want to talk about, in this particular second half, the work that you're doing. Like, obviously, you've given a few little hints about the game and the characters, but give us the big scope first, the overview. What are you doing? Okay.
So the game is called The Songbird Guild. It is a Yuri visual novel RPG, which Yuri meaning it's about women loving women. Essentially, it's a romance story about two women who fall in love with each other. But we actually got Pride stuff here on Pride Day, yay! But yeah, So the story centers around these magical girls, but it's an environment where being a magical girl is just like a 9-to-5 job. Like you're just like
way to take the magic part out of it.
yeah. You're using magic, but you're like being hired by companies to be a contractor when they like need magic to solve a problem or something.
Okay.
A lot of it is kind of about how there's this world inside this, magical barrier where there's a city and everyone, kind of lives there happily. But in order for the city to thrive, people need to go outside of that barrier and explore and collect resources and, build things sometimes so people can travel between the cities and stuff like that. And that's usually where the magical girls come in, is they're the people who go outside the barrier and do these things, or, aid the companies who are, doing the research and building out there with these things. But it's a really hard job. It's a job that a lot of the people in the city don't really give the people who do it credit for, just how stressful of a job it is. And so these two characters, they sort of, attach through, dealing with that hardship together. They're both very hard on themselves at times, and sort of together through each other's grace, they kind of learn to love themselves, and by extension, end up loving each other. And
I love that. Yeah. I love that. Like, first they learn to love themselves, especially in a society where it seems like their job is thankless, underappreciated. Who could possibly feel like that? None of us. People don't feel that way. No, but I think that's so wonderful, and that they learn to love themselves and then they find love. I think that is a story of victory that we all want to move towards. And so building that in, I think, is such a lovely and relatable response. Now, let's talk about, right, where did the initial start begin? Was it, I have a story in my mind, or it, like, I first developed a particular character, or you're like, here's the genre of games that we want to go in? What was step one to begin with that you're like, okay, let's launch from here?
So we started out with not much of a prompt beyond gay Fire Emblem, which is funny because the mechanics have very little to do with Fire Emblem anymore. But that was sort of the idea, was you have magical girls. There's a mechanic where they sort of have like a romance stat together.
Yeah.
And then they sort of unlock stories of them falling in love as you go through this together. But that was part of, I was talking about the initial idea for it kind of being really ambitious. It got really hard to even just write the story, because you could have any characters that you had recruited and be pairing them off with any other characters, and that had to turn into meaningful love stories of, basically any pairing you wanted to make together and still somehow
Mhm.
add up into an actual like meaningful arc. So
Ooh.
part of moving forward with a much lower scope idea was taking the two characters whose love story just felt the most polished and that we just liked the best, and sort of being like, we're going to focus on that is the story um, of our game.
Aw, I love that. Wait, I gotta ask then, because I love this angle. I love the approach. I love love, right? But there's so many stories of love out there, and
Mhm.
not all of them are always writing ones that are good or healthy. I'm looking at 50 Shades
Mhm.
of Grey right now. Specific shade. You can love it for whatever reasons. No hate if you enjoy it.
Mhm.
But like when we talk about like how do we depict what good relationships look like? What is it like writing about love? What is it like asking people now to not just read about it but to play and enact and create moments of love?
Yeah, so as far as writing, that was certainly something where it's hard for me because I've never really been in a relationship
Mhm.
like that.
Mhm.
Um, but I knew
Not yet.
I
Maybe. I don't know.
not yet,
I haven't played the
not
game. Maybe
yet.
you're like, I don't want
Yeah,
to.
yeah. People out there, I am, yeah, available and no, I'm just kidding. But
Listen,
yeah,
this is your platform,
um,
okay?
yeah, yeah. But yeah, so for me, I mean, I've always considered myself a pretty sort of demi-romantic, demisexual person anyway. Whereas just I kind of want to be like good friends with you and feel comfortable with you before we actually move forward into something that's, considered a date. It's been really hard for me, that sort of feeling of like, oh, you ask someone out or you become friends with them and it's hard to like cross from one path to the other.
Right.
um because they feel like, like they feel like, one is just later on down the path of but anyway,
Yeah, this
so a lot of
assumption
it
of
was
a
just
linear journey, and that's it.
yeah, so I a lot of it was just kind of like based off of like what my really good friendships, like the friendships where like even though we're not um in the same place doing the same thing anymore, like I still really remember like how special I felt and how happy I was to just be able to spend time with them.
Mhm.
um and I sort of poured a lot of that into it. And I mean, one of the things that I've found with friendship is sometimes it really is just spending time together. I
Yeah.
mean, there is certainly the chemistry thing, but like some of my best friends that I met, it was literally just because we like worked on a project together. And then it's hard to even say like how things kind of, escalated from there. We just had a really good time doing that thing that we got put together in. So that's where, in this situation, it's kind of like, these two people work, in the same magical girl guild. They're just sort of like, doing their thing, but in doing their thing, they support each other tremendously. We were talking about the characters learning to love each other, and each one of them is a big part in really helping the other one work through
Mhm.
all of those things. And so then at the end, I think it's kind of less of like a, big moment happens, and more of just like, you have moments where the character realizes like, I think I want to put a different label on these feelings that I have for this person.
Mm-hmm. I think that's interesting, right? Like, because how much of our writing has to come from our experiences, not
Yeah.
necessarily like actual experiences, but they're inspired by, or they give us a sense of what we'd like or what we think is good and delightful. What is it like then sharing that and bringing a team on board to say like, this is the story we're telling? Was everyone like, yes, we get it, I understand? Or were other people also offering like, well, what if they also did this?
It's kind of interesting because some of this I've sort of been like figuring out over time. Um, and so I've definitely sort of had discussions with, I think one of the really interesting discussions that gave me confidence to go forward with this was I had asked a couple of the team members who I knew had partners. I was like, hey, do you just mind if I ask how you how you develop feelings for your partner, since I'm the writer for this game about two people developing feelings for each other. And both of them were like, I don't know, we just hung out a lot. And so I was like, oh, like that was it. Like it's literally the same story that I told you about my best friends. You just made a romantic relationship out of it. They're like, yeah. Like, oh, okay. Well, I can do that. Like I know all about that. I just haven't ever actually, put a label of love on it yet.
Yeah. No, I think that's good. And I love that you also ask other people, because it's obviously this is no longer just your story that you're telling. And so when
Yeah.
you bring in your team members' experiences, and that way it creates, right, that shared work that's putting into what you're creating here.
Yeah, there were in the original outline for the thing, I think there were 3 characters who died, and the team was upset enough about those characters dying that now there's only 1 character
We
who,
revolt.
who actually dies. I was like, okay, I won't kill such and such. She'll just go like off to this place and not be
Yeah.
in the story anymore.
They have a nicer separate exit, right? Yes.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
But I think this also shows like sometimes people like they describe the developers or the artists or the people behind it like, oh, they're just like the people who make the game. But like you get attached, you get invested, you care about wanting the characters in this story to be seen, to have endings that are valuable and impactful in the way that you want. So I think that's so perfect. Now with this, okay, what are you looking in terms of deadlines and pieces in which we can start seeing more of this for those of us who are like consumers of said game?
Yeah.
What are we dreaming of here?
Yeah. So ideally, we're hoping to have a demo released sometime over the summer, like, July, maybe August, maybe something like that.
Fair.
Right now, you can play through everything that we would consider the demo.
Okay.
It's just a matter of we're still doing like, play tests and internal tests and just finding a lot of glitches. So that's the hard part, is like, how long does it take you to polish out all the glitches? Is like, well, we don't know how many, you never know how many there are. They just keep coming.
As soon as
So
you
we
solve
have
one, you find 3 more. It's
yeah, exactly.
standard.
We have a message pinned to our programming channel. It's like 99 tickets of bugs on the wall, 99 tickets of bugs. You take one down, pass it around, 200 tickets of bugs on the wall.
Here. Yep.
Yeah. The people who have been advising us have sort of been encouraging us to they keep saying like, you can't, I'm trying to think of a good way to say it, but like they don't want us to get so caught up in polish that like it never comes out. But like I also really don't want to release something that feels like it's not ready yet. So I think it's kind of good to have that push in 2 different directions, because you don't want to do either one. Like you have to put this out to the world at some point, but you also want to like, give it the time to marinate that it needs. Yeah, hopefully a demo sometime over the summer. I wish us luck on keep your fingers crossed. And then right now we're sort of vaguely talking about like, next year at some point to release it.
Ooh.
Um, but yeah, if you want to follow along, look up Yurisoft, yurisoftgames.com. It has links out to like the Tumblr and the Instagram and the TikTok that we use and whatnot. Just feel free to follow along on one of those, sign up for our newsletter, and we'll let you know when those things come out once we have a better idea of a timeline. We're also applying to publishers right now, so to a certain extent, we're also open to like, a publisher could also like, having a publisher could also change the timeline just depending on how things go with them. If they already have a big announcement in the summer, they may say, can you do your demo in the fall, because we don't have any big announcements that are going to be competing with that. So
Sure. There's your
yeah,
internal deadlines, and then there's the schedule
yeah.
of others.
But right now, I'm at least going to be in New York City for a convention called FlameCon. I think it's the third weekend in August. And I keep telling myself, like, there's going to be a demo for people to play by. Like, when I'm at FlameCon, like, there's going to be a, QR code or something where it's like, scan here, to go to the Steam page where you can play the demo. So, like, oh, yeah, so that would be like the latest that I'd want it to be would be around mid-August, so that hopefully it will be there for FlameCon.
Well, we'll cross all our fingers and toes.
Yeah.
And everyone, if you're attending FlameCon, make sure you drop by and be able to play the demo. We're just going to say, like, go play the demo when you're there.
Yeah.
We'll speak it into existence.
Yeah.
I love that.
No, yeah, definitely come by and be like, yeah, Caustic Phoenix sent me, and I'll we have free goodies that we usually give away, so we'll have like stickers of our characters and stuff. They'll give you some extra stickers if you're like, yeah.
See, even better. I love that. I'm excited for you. I'm glad to see like these launches for the demo for the game. They're coming up on the horizon for you. I mean, even a year out, like that's going to come fast at the end of the day. Like months, days, they're flying by for you. What is the impact that you're hoping to have your game in the hands of players?
I'm hoping that it makes people happy. I think that's the biggest reason why I grew up playing video games. And I think there are other people who just need a little more happiness in their life. I sit there saying that, when the original script had 3 character deaths in it, but
be happy in their deaths, right?
No, it's very much a story that gets like, it does get dark at times, but it's one that I still hope makes people feel like, they feel like they can also love themselves, like, these characters do. And just really I don't know, just have a good time with it. I almost don't even want to get too deep with it, just because like we just need more happiness in the world. And I just really hope it makes somebody smile who plays it. After a long day, it'd be awesome if this could be what makes somebody smile after a day that wasn't going well. So
I love that. I think what you're asking is so kind and reasonable, but is also it's healthy, right? Like you are reflecting on what video games offered you, right? Like games are fun, and you want to provide that as well.
Yeah, I kind of joke about I grew up in a bit of a privileged environment, almost a little bit sheltered to the stuff that was out there. I absolutely love my neighborhood, to death. I want to stay here forever, but it is very much the like socks with sandals, Christmas lights go up in November, um,
It's got a
type
look.
of yeah, everything is, um,
Socks with sandals. That is a culture. Yes. Yes, it
yeah, yeah.
is.
So I don't know. I guess when I thought about like what impact do I want to have on people, the most impactful experiences for me were the stories that people had told. The creative works that people had done that had really impacted me on an emotional level. Um,
Mhm.
I was really lucky enough to not have any family who was like deathly ill, who was saved by a doctor. That was like,
Oh.
I mean, obviously that would be better, than somebody being deathly ill and then like, dying.
Yeah, yeah,
But
of
like
the two.
I it feels almost a bit yeah, I guess that's probably the right word. It's just like, privileged, almost a bit spoiled, where I'm like, when I really thought through, like, what impact I wanted to have on people, like, video games,
Yeah.
was what I thought of when there are people who are, sick and homeless and stuff. Um, but I still think, even after sort of, growing up and being an adult,
Mhm.
in seeing all of those other things, I still think that there is. I mean, we still need art also.
Yeah, we do.
I think this is just something that I mean, it makes me happy too. It's something I'm passionate about. And I'm tooting my own horn, but I think it is something that I'm good at, and I hope um, I'm good enough at it that it does sort of have that positive impact on people, and hopefully not just people like me growing up who didn't really have any worries, but hopefully also people who um, need something in their lives that's going to be like, I know I can come home and this will this will make me you know happy. Or maybe it won't. I don't know if it's gonna. I mean, I'm sitting here saying like it's gonna be like such a powerful experience for
Ah.
people. Um, it may just be like, oh, that was fun for most people, and that's fine too.
Mhm.
I'm getting like really sappy with the whole like but maybe for one person out there, maybe one person, if one person out there was having a bad time and this game helped them have a better time, I think that would be a success then, as far as that goes.
I think that's such a beautiful result that you're looking for, and seeing your work as art and helping
Mm,
people through whatever, right? Wherever they are,
mm,
right? Giving this story that can be meaningful to them is so kind. I
mm.
love that. I I want to platform just for a hot second, if you will
Yeah.
let me. I'm going to say something and I think it's important. I'm not going to ask you, and I want to be clear, like I'm not asking you why did you want to do a gay Fire Emblem story, right? Or why did you decide to make them, two magical women falling in love? Because I think that is an unfair question that we often see in any media or stories. We don't ask those questions of between what we might see of heterosexual relationships. We don't ask, well,
Mm,
why did you make them this, right? I don't think that's fair. And I think it doesn't need justification. It is two amazing individuals. These are stories that are reflective of reality and people that exist in our world. Maybe not magical, but right, like people that exist and find love. And I think that's important that you find stories that are ones that resonate with you, that are ones that add to our pool and is important. We don't need justification as to why. There can be reasons why, but those are yours, and I don't feel like it is my place on this show to ask, well, why did you decide to make them of the same sex that they love? Because it's not
yeah.
necessary. It's not needed, and it's not. Those questions don't often come from a
Mm,
position of care, of genuineness, or productivity in wanting to learn more.
Yeah, there was I can still talk about it though
If you
if
want
you'd
to,
like.
you get to
Okay.
lead. Yes. But I think,
Yeah, yeah.
it's
So
kind of like when I like, oh, why do you like when people lead into
yeah,
gossip, it's like, we're pigeonholing like, people or we keep otherizing it. And I don't want to
yeah.
do that.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, yeah, we'll just I mean,
Hmm.
if I was doing like a heterosexual romance, I'd also just, you know, there probably would be a reason why I wanted, it to be primarily a story of two people falling in love. Um,
Hmm.
anyway, I think for me, ever since I started to know that I was transgender,
Hmm.
um, I I've kind of wanted to sort of explore that space, and kind of making things aimed at that community.
Hmm.
Because I actually started this out in the very first time I started bringing this up, I think was like 2015.
Yeah.
Um, and back then, I forget if Legend of Korra had happened, but like we didn't have She-Ra. We didn't have Owl House.
Hmm.
It was still very much an era of like, um, if you wanted to put um, gay characters into media, you really had to fight hard for that.
Yes.
And I wanted to sort of, normalize it a bit. I think luckily we're in a position where it's not it's a lot better than it was. We still certainly have a lot of people who complain about like, oh, like why do they have to like pander to the LGBT community? And it's like you said, it's like, oh, are we pandering to the straight community now when a guy and a girl fall in love?
Yeah.
There's been a lot of pandering in Hollywood for quite a
So
long
much.
time in that
Yeah.
case.
If we're doing a scoreboard here, okay, like there's
Yeah.
still a big imbalance.
But yeah, no, I think it's still just a community that likes this type of thing, and to a certain extent as well. Like I don't know that like I I like seeing stories of women falling in love because I
Yeah.
am a woman who you know would like to fall in love with another
Hmm.
woman at some point. So
Yeah.
I think there's also just like the element of if I'm going to make a game about romance, it's my first inclination probably is like, oh, I'm going to make make them gay like I am, type of thing.
Yeah.
It is kind of funny though. Back when I first started pitching this around, the feedback that I got overall was that there really wasn't like a market, for that type of thing. There were people who played video games, and then there was the LGBT community. They're like, you need to really pick one because they don't. The people were saying that they don't really overlap. And me just being a baby gay at the time was just like, well,
Baby K.
recently transitioned. I didn't know better, so I was like, oh, okay, like,
Yeah.
and I left it off. And in the recent years, seeing more LGBT focused games come out, I ended up actually stumbling across a studio that I'm like in love with now that also specifically makes LGBT focused games.
Mm.
And I was like, well, wait a minute. Like, how are they successful if there's no community for this?
Yeah.
So around 2019, like early 2020, I kind of took uh, took it back out of the closet, we'll just say,
Yeah.
and started actually working on like Gay Fire Emblem is going to
Yes.
be real. um, but what's funny is that like I think the first person I pitched it to said something along the lines of like, oh, there's just so much LGBT stuff out there these days that it's really a saturated market. And then he literally says something along the lines of like, you should have been here like 5 years ago or so when the market was less saturated. like 5 years ago, you guys told me that there was no market.
Yeah.
I guess it really is true. You can't pitch anything new because there's no market, but you can't pitch anything that exists because that's not novel enough.
Yeah.
So
Wow. So basically you couldn't
yeah,
win. I just it's
yeah,
oversaturated. Either way, people are lying to you.
yeah,
Right? Like but and I'm so glad, right, that at the end of the day, I look at this and I think you get to tell the story that you want to tell.
yeah,
And you shouldn't get comments on like Instagram or Tumblr or wherever you are of like, it's oversaturated. We've heard too many gay stories. Like that doesn't need to happen, right? There's no question. And maybe it's just even today, I hopped onto Lego because I love Lego. I think Lego's fun. Lego shared a Pride post. Here's
yeah,
creations that people had made celebrating Pride. It looked lovely, and there were some wonderful comments in chat, but also there were not some.
yeah,
To put it simply, right? Like
yeah,
that even just doing that, or like, Valorant, Overwatch, right? At League of Legends, right? When they come out with champions or characters with different stories, you'll still see some people putting like, this is a bad take. You've just
yeah.
lost gamers, right? Like there's it's
The gamers
unfortunate.
are some entity with like a council that's just decided gay marriage is against our principle.
Yeah, like
The
let's be
gamer
clear.
council has
If,
sealed your fate. You're no longer
if
cool.
if there was a gamer council, they would not be sitting on the board, right? Like but right, like that it's there, and like they're just giving more voice to, and that's what I don't want to do is like give more voice to people who require justification as to
Mm.
why gay or any diverse story needs to exist.
Yeah, and I think it's worth mentioning that I live
Hmm.
in a very liberal part of upstate New York.
Hmm.
So certainly, everyone needs to, gauge their own environment and do what they need
Yes.
to do to stay safe.
Hmm.
So I know when I sort of explain to my European friends, and they're like, the U.S. seems like such a good, such an LGBT friendly place, and it's like, well, here it absolutely is.
Yeah.
We're talking about a big we're talking about there was one person who I was like, the state I live in is around the same area as the country you live in.
Yeah.
So like off on the other side of the country, you have completely different cultures from each other.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's not to get off on a tangent there, but that's all to just say like, gauge your own environment.
Yes.
But my personal experience being in the online spaces I've been in,
Hmm.
um, and being in the events that I've been in with this company, nobody's given me a hard time about being transgender
Hmm.
or being gay. Um, I've certainly, I think everybody has had that one or two people show up, but honestly, with me, uh, the only people I can think of who just like randomly showed up online to be antagonistic were involved with like completely, other things that weren't even related to this.
Hmm.
So far, this company has gotten a lot of support. I think it's enough support so that even if there are people who want to like, complain about it or,
Yeah.
harass people involved with it,
Hmm.
that community sort of creates like an insulating bubble. People aren't going to come troll in a space where they know that they're going to get dogpiled on
Yeah.
by everyone else there, if they troll there.
Hmm.
So yeah, I want to say that as a word of encouragement to other people out there, who want to make this type of game.
Hmm.
um, especially online,
Yeah.
you have a community out there that will help protect you. Um,
Yes.
and
We want those spaces where we can say hate has no power here.
yes, absolutely.
I love
Yeah,
this. I love hearing about your experience. I think it is such a hope and a dream that we want for more, and it is encouraging, right? As we continue to take steps that we're seeing more and more safer environments. We're seeing people being able to tell the stories that they want to tell, that they can
Yeah.
see characters that are reflective of them, right? Like that's at the end of the
Yeah.
day, we want to be able to approach and embrace and make it a richer environment for everyone.
Yeah, and like I was talking about before, we got grant money from a university. Like, how great is that we live in a world where somebody can be like, "We're making gay Fire Emblem," and the university can be like,
Yeah.
"Here's money."
Yes. Yes. Yeah. You're
Yeah.
like full support. Here we go. That's the energy that we want.
Yeah.
I love this test. And we're running short on time and I want
Okay.
us to be able to keep following through with this. Where can we support you? Where can we go like, yeah, give us more, cheer you on, throw in those supports, find out when the demo is in, right? All of those details you had mentioned at Instagram, you had mentioned Tumblr, and I know you gave us the website name. Throw all of those at us again.
Yeah, I don't really have much personal social media. I post on it maybe once every few months,
Okay.
so probably it is best to just follow me on just the Yurisoft stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's Yurisoft, Yurisoft, and yurisoftgames.com is the website. That will give you a newsletter sign up page, and then at Yurisoft Games, I think is the there's a Blue Sky now. Oh yeah, I should mention that too. Yeah, it's at Yurisoft Games on Blue Sky, Tumblr, though I think Tumblr doesn't have the at in front of it.
Yeah.
Instagram and TikTok. But if you go to yurisoftgames.com or if you search Yurisoft Games in any of those platforms, I think it'll probably come up. Like I said, the website has links out to everything else. So yeah, that's kind of the long-winded answer to all of your questions. It's kind of how I just talk sometimes. Is like I throw out a whole bunch of words, and like somewhere in there is like the core meaning in like that blob.
Mm-hmm. We're following.
Honestly,
Don't worry. It's
yeah.
fun. We're swimming through the words and we're enjoying every piece of it.
It's kind of like how I write, except you can't go through and do like additional drafts. It's just like your first draft is your final draft, and that's what makes speaking hard.
Well, you nailed it. I appreciate you so much and the discussions that you brought today. You are a breath of fresh air. Thank you so much for coming and talking to us. For our viewers, I know you're watching on Monday, but this Thursday, it has been such wonderful to talk to you. It gives such a great angle as we go throughout this week, as we think about the games that we can support, the approach, and how we challenge ourselves. Thank you so much, Tess. Make sure, good friends, if you're here on Pink Pixels, you go give a follow. Check out the website. Remember, easiest way to find all the social links across the board. But this is our way in which we can make sure that we can show support, staying involved, following, liking, playing the demo. All of those are good things to make sure that we continue to get great, awesome stories and games like what Tess is creating. So that's...
Thank you.
Of course, of course. That's all we have for today, good friends. We'll see you all later. If you are new here, make sure you give the gamers a follow on this channel. There's tons of great content that they're putting on all throughout the week, so make sure you don't miss a single beat of it. If anything, we'll see you all next week for another episode of Pink Pixels. Bye, everyone.